Hola, amigas y amigos. Welcome to the MíraLA Podcast. I'm your host, Arianna Lemus. This podcast is by women, for women, and anyone willing to listen to women. Enjoy the show. Isabel Grace is a woman-owned florist business. Aside from making beautiful bouquets for every occasion, she and her team plan events to help you celebrate all of your family celebrations and milestones. From baby showers, birthdays, graduations, and weddings, Isabel Grace is a proud sponsor of the MíraLA Podcast, providing all of our guests their favorite arrangement of flowers. In this episode, I interview Magybet Mendez. Magybet is the CEO and founder of Immigo. Immigo is a team of immigration professionals and dedicated volunteers who support their clients who are obtaining their U.S. citizenship. Immigo is a resource for the undocumented and encourages people to use their skills and passion to serve their community. Follow at Magybet and at Immigo.org to learn more. Hi, Magybet.
Hi, Arianna. How are you?
I'm great. This is my second episode, and I'm so happy you're my guest.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. How was your Jamaica earlier?
It was delicious. It's my favorite drink, and it's perfect for this summer.
Absolutely. So I just want all my guests to feel really comfortable when they come to the Walk House. I don't know if I got to share with you the facility that we're recording the podcast. This is the Walk House. This is a wellness center that is helping women of color to heal themselves and find community with other women. And it was very much in alignment with everything that I'm doing with MíraLA. So being able to be here with you, to be having the conversation that we are, means so much to me because, as you know, we just met recently and I feel like we've really made like a real connection. And I am just excited for people to hear your story and to support you. So why don't we talk about your amazing nonprofit, Immigo? Why don't we start there?
Sure. Immigo is a 501c3 nonprofit that I began so immigrant communities have access to services and resources that are often not attainable in our communities where they're not easily reached. So it's really important for me to be here today because the more that people are aware that we exist and the services we provide, the more that we're able to help more individuals.
That's amazing. And currently, what has been going on recently with you and Immigo?
So recently, Immigo had its first U.S. citizenship graduation ceremony. And it was a milestone for us because a lot of the individuals that come to us for civics education never went to school back home, didn't graduate from even high school. A lot of the community is the working class community. They need help passing their 100 test questions that they're asked. And so out of those 100 questions, they just kind of shuffle through them and ask them 10. But it is very challenging because if they're not, if they don't speak English, it's really challenging for them to study. But we are there to help. And so the program finally had its graduation ceremony. It was really special to see all the families come together.
Yes, and I may or may not have had something to do with the citizenship ceremony. So just to give people like a little bit of backstory about our connection, we were actually connected through one of the filmmakers at the MíraLA Film Festival. So shout out to Sonia who connected us because when I met you and I heard your story and I heard about Immigo, it touched me because I also come from an immigrant family. My mother is an immigrant and she, not to put her business out there, but she also is not a citizen. And it's always been something that I just was so confused about. And I didn't understand like why that wasn't important to her, but that's her journey. And, she's my mother and I love her and I respect her. But I think for a lot of children who come from immigrant parents who choose not to become citizens, there's a little bit of fear there, but at the end of the day, I was just happy that my mom was able to support me and support you and come and volunteer and get educated. And what was so amazing is that she was really touched by all the testimonials at the citizenship ceremony that she, I believe, signed up. So, thank you for doing that, because not only, do we have our connection and we've connected, but now you have inspired my mom to become a citizen. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's wonderful because that's our intention with the U.S. citizenship graduation ceremony, is to celebrate those who have passed, but also to encourage and motivate, inspire other individuals to take action and take the steps necessary so they can feel secure in this country. And U.S. citizenship does that. So so happy that you shared that with me. I loved your mom volunteering. It was so wonderful to see. It's always wonderful to see moms coming in to help. And right now, with the new graduates, we have an amazing opportunity to reconnect with them again through civic participation, which is, volunteer work.
I honestly, like, from my mom's experience and going to the citizenship ceremony and just having this fairly predominantly positive experience. Yeah, there were hiccups because she was on the volunteer side of trying to get things organized, and this was your first citizenship ceremony. And the reason I even wanted to be a part of it was because not only did I resonate with the nonprofit and the advocacy that it's doing for immigrant communities, but coming from a nonprofit myself with the film festival, like, I know how hard it is to gain sponsors, to look some type of professional, to appear like you know what you're doing when you're asking people for hundreds, thousands of dollars, So I'm not a college graduate. I just learn from the experiences that I've learned working in the industry, working in production, and just the office jobs that I've attained, the administration work, like all of the life skills all the odd jobs that I've gotten, to support my dream, and my dream was to become an actor, and my dream was to work in the industry. But now I get to do that, and I get to do that on my terms. And I get to now use my voice to empower women like you, to share your story and to share your truth. So thank you for being here. Thank you for educating all of us who probably know very little about immigration issues. So currently, right now in the United States, can you just share with us, like, what is something that our generation and younger generations should be talking about?
So I think the most important tool we have at our disposal is social media, and just simply sharing our experiences and our stories. They come a long way. They're powerful. We each have a different perspective and a different, struggle when it comes to being undocumented, being a DACA recipient, a TPS holder. And if we're able to share our stories, it really just informs more individuals of the work that's needed, maybe resources they're not informed about. You could potentially be connecting somebody to a life-changing opportunity. If people learn more about all the resources that we do have, then maybe they can find a solution to their issue. But I think that that's one of the most important things, is really putting our stories out there. And that's what MíraLA Podcast is doing today.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to continue to do. This is the beginning of the beginning. And I don't really know where this podcast is going to go, but I know that the women that I bring on specifically, have amazing stories to share. Like, using my platform to share the platform with other women is so important to me, because, as you know, I have my pageant background, and there's just so much injustice in so many industries, so to be able to have, created myself to be an empowered woman, I can look at another woman like yourself and feel empowered. There's no envy, there's no jealousy. So if you can kind of just share with me, like, your journey about your womanhood and, like, what it's like to be in this space of the nonprofit.
Yeah, being in the nonprofit sector honestly has been really challenging for me. Just finding the same like-minded individuals, um, who are founders, who are CEOs, is is hard to come by in this sector. And I just feel like lots of the nonprofits that are being ran today don't really have a direct connection to the demographic they're trying to serve. And so for me, that was the biggest motivate. One of the biggest motivations is creating something that I feel like I care about, and I could really relate to individuals firsthand. I'm still undocumented myself, so a lot of the times I do find myself sharing the stories, and the more that I share my past and even, my future goals, more of the community comes together to, help. But it has been challenging finding other women in this sector. And I think that it is time for us to advocate for more spaces, giving opening our own table, right, or our own board to women of color. And I met wonderful individuals who are new emerging leaders that it's been inspiring for me to see their journey as well, and we try to uplift each other. But overall, I think that there could be more.
I think we could always be doing better. I think just now being, 2024 and just like where we are with like politics when it comes to being a woman, when like social issues and just like all of these things, like it is 2024. Like we need to be supporting other women, like when I saw you and I met you and I heard your story and it resonated with me, like I genuinely wanted to help you. And I did, like I just helped you with what I know, what I did with my festival, in the months prior. And I'm just so grateful to have done that for you, and I'm excited to grow with you genuinely. I think that you have a pure heart. I think you come from a good place. I think what you're doing God's work. You know what I mean? But whatever you believe in, whatever people believe in, like you are a goddess, Magybet. Like you truly are living in your purpose, and like it's unfortunate that like not a lot of people know about it, right? But as you continue to grow the nonprofit, as you continue to grow yourself as a woman, like you are going to be someone so great. And I hope you know that.
Yeah, I mean, going back to some of the struggles faced was telling my own story in the very beginning, right? I kind of had this idea or this image in my mind that I wanted the nonprofit to stand out as the nonprofit. Not that I was trying to disconnect, but I really just wanted it to stand on its own, just kind of be its own branding. And I realize now that we connecting my story to the nonprofit it is important, but in the very beginning I was just holding back a lot of the stuff that I was doing on a personal level, just because I did want it to stand alone.
Well, it sounds like you
Yeah.
didn't want to take up space. And I think that's something as a woman of color, maybe this is just a woman issue, but I would say like more so like women of color, like we just have a hard time like feeling like we're supposed to be in certain places, and I don't know if that stems from our childhood or just like the way we grew up, but like I am now with my brand and everything that I'm building with MíraLA, it's like every woman that's a part of my community, I want them to know, like, I was just saying this in my other episode, like you're a giant. You're not a grasshopper, Magybet. Like what you're doing, you're not doing small stuff. You're doing big stuff. Big uncomfortable stuff. Big like stuff. To look at, certain people who look different than you, that dress differently than you, and to say like this is what I'm promoting, this is what's going on, and trying to get those people to understand your story is maybe it could be so difficult, right? Because they just come from like a different caliber, a different class, a different background. So how do you get people to connect to your story?
So within Immigo, there's different departments, and honestly, they were all created from a personal story, from a personal challenge, struggle that I went through. And so for every program, pretty much there is a personal tie to it, and there is examples of families, right, who we have their permission to tell their story. And a lot of the times when individuals don't understand, it's all about digging into like, their philanthropist agenda, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like families, yes, they're immigrant families, but they also have other different hardships that come with that. And sometimes individuals can relate to not just because they're immigrants, but because of their different backgrounds.
I don't know why this is coming up for me. And I do want to talk about your past,
Yeah.
because I think your past, like I was saying in the last episode, it didn't define you, it informed you.
Welcome to the Walk House, a thriving mental health and wellness center nestled in the heart of Valley Glen, California. We provide culturally sensitive therapy, energy healing, and workshops tailored to the unique needs of teens and women of color. The Walk House is also a perfect rental location for your next event, workshop, wellness retreat. It features 3 offices, 2 bathrooms, a cozy living room, library, and kitchen. And our private yoga studio is fully equipped with blankets, yoga mats, everything you need to have an amazing wellness experience. We're excited to welcome you to the Walk House.
What's probably one of the most realist, raw, like saddest story that you've came across and that you think to bring awareness to how massive this issue is, just to give people a little bit of insight?
Oh, there's so many stories. There's so many. So just from the top of my mind, I think one of the stories that motivated me to create Amigo was 2 different men in 2 different occasions. One was, recycling to pay off his legal fees. And I just felt like, well, he's coming in. He was consistent in paying his monthly fees, at this private firm that I was working for. But he was recycling, to have those fees. And I just felt like there was a more affordable way or low cost or even free way of doing this work. Then there was another instance where a man who didn't go to therapy, didn't do inner work, right, faced a very tough situation, lost family members, lost his wife, and he began drinking, and it was just really sad because he's lost all his paperwork. And once he started to get better, he wanted his green card. And then just kind of like realizing he couldn't find a place that would provide him that first step to getting back on his feet to find a job. I did that work for free. He came back 3 months later and was just like a brand new guy. A year later, I saw him at the gym. He was doing well, realizing that if we give individuals a chance, right, to process their paperwork, it could really mean a lot, like long term.
It almost sounds like you gave him a second chance.
Yeah, I would like to think so. And then there was another story where, like, family was living in a shelter, right? But they have here in LA, they have a little bit of time. And so if you're undocumented and don't have a social security, you can't be there for very long. So, just seeing them come for items, for clothing donations that we receive, that we give out to community, picking up toys, and just a family that was coming in frequently for access to basic needs and items. It just became evident that we need more orgs doing this type of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Take me back to 3 years ago, or younger Magybet. How proud are you of yourself?
Ooh, I'm really proud. I came a long way. So a lot of individuals like didn't actually know I was doing this type of work for a really long time because, I was just going to work and then, had my own like personal time. And then, I just kind of came out with my story. But younger me was an activist. Right after high school, I started advocating for the DREAM Act that died in 2010. And it is there where I discovered that the more that we're outspoken, or in some sense coming out of the shadows, the more that our power grows in this country as immigrants, because the system does not know what to do with an immigrant who's no longer afraid. So in some sense, it kind of triggers the system. And so if you're outspoken about your story, you kind of realize like, well, they don't really want to, go after you if you are outspoken. And it was also to protect ourselves and our families. And I think I lived through a very interesting time where we were fighting for the DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that we have today. And this program really helped a lot of individuals, but it was also to, in some sense, silence the movement that was that was growing. It was becoming an unstoppable movement. We still need a permanent pathway for DACA recipients and our parents. But just going back, I always knew I wasn't born in this country. My parents didn't hide it from me. I knew I was born in Mexico. I just didn't really know what it meant to be undocumented until after high school when I realized I couldn't drive. I couldn't, get financial aid or Cal grants. So it was a total shock for me to realize, like, wow, I can't really do any of these things, and or get a job, which was really important as an adult, a young adult, to be able to cover basic needs or even books, tuition. Just discovering that what it meant to be undocumented really changed everything for me. I realized, wow, like, how are my parents doing it? So it was really important for me to come to terms with what are other families doing about this? What could be done? Because it just wasn't fair. It just felt like, wow, like it was a total shock at that moment for sure.
So obviously at some point around that time you hit a rock bottom.
Yeah, I did, because I pretty much didn't know what to do about getting a job, which I felt would change everything at that moment. So I started freelancing, and I think that's where a lot of this inner, I guess, in some sense, like multi-talented person comes from, because I do juggle with different, I'm able to do different things because of my early struggles that I faced and how I was pushed to find solutions for those things. So I just became a great freelancer in many things. And it wasn't until DACA passed that I was able to get my first job at a law firm.
Wow. And what did that experience at that law firm? I'm sure it had a big impact in the work that you're doing today. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I was finally able to use my paralegal degree, and I went into a law firm because they needed a bilingual speaker. And since I spoke Spanish well, I was hired above all the other candidates who I'm not sure probably had experience, but just going in there and seeing firsthand what families are going through when it comes to the legal process just really inspired me to keep learning and keep growing. You know, and next thing you know, I'm at another job and I'm moving up to being a case manager, and then a senior paralegal. And I just didn't want to stop there, because I felt like I could contribute now all those skills I built in a private sector, and bringing them to a nonprofit sector was important.
And when did you start Immigo?
I started Amigo in October of 2019. So this was before the pandemic was announced. I always like joke with individuals, and I tell them, like, hey, if I knew a pandemic was going to hit, I probably wouldn't have done it. But now going back, I'm like, well, actually, it was a good time to start.
I was gonna say, were you able to cash in on some of that nonprofit money that they were giving out?
I was one time for LA County, which was amazing. But having the nonprofit created then, it helped a lot, because when offices were shutting down, I was ready to, and I was mobile at the time. So I didn't have an office space, but I was willing to, collect signatures, go to people's, home, or meet them at a public Starbucks, or even outside, outdoor spaces. And it just became evident that a lot of people were struggling to get their responses in, or people just felt abandoned by the offices that were closed. And so it just ended up being a perfect time to start.
I love that. I want to touch base on this beautiful flower arrangement from our sponsor, Isabel Grace. These are tulips, and I just wanted to know if there was any connection with these flowers here, and what flowers for you personally, not just as a woman, but just to you personally, Magybet, like, are flowers meaningful to you? Does it help you connect to your femininity a little bit more, especially like doing all the work that you're doing? You're in your masculine energy, right? Like, you have to think, you have to take action, and I very much feel that way too, like starting my own businesses. But I want to, of course, give our sponsor a shout out. But if you can tell me the connection that you have to these flowers or just any flowers in general.
Yeah, so tulips were grown in my dad's land back home. And so he always told me about him picking flowers for my mom. And I was able to finally see that in person. So I did something known as advanced parole. Advanced parole is something that individuals should learn more about. Advanced parole grants DACA recipients a permit to travel back home. And this could be for humanitarian reason, educational purposes, or business related. And I was invited to go speak at a school. So I was able to get this permit to go back home. And this was really nice and refreshing moment, I guess, for me, because I always wanted to travel with my parents. My parents were able to get a green card about 4 years ago. Just felt like, wow, now I'm in a mixed status family and I couldn't go back. But I went back with them. And so I saw the flowers there, and my dad was cutting them and gave some to me, gave some to my mom. And I have a video that I still need to post about it. But it was just like really nice to see, because I've always heard that this is what he used to do. And so now physically being there and seeing it, it was just like such a special moment. And so, yeah, that's why I picked tulips. And
that is such a beautiful story. And that's exactly why, just creating the podcast and creating like, how am I going to be different from like everybody else? I'm here empowering women. We're talking about women. This podcast is for other women and anyone willing to listen to us. And, not only like as you sit here today in front of me, do I want to give you your flowers because like you deserve that. You know what I mean? And on the days that you think that you don't deserve anything, like I want these flowers to be a reminder that they do, and when they die, like I encourage you to like continue to buy yourself flowers, Miley Cyrus, you know what I mean? Like you have to love yourself. You have to love the work that you're doing. And I hope that everyone here today can really take what you're saying and, follow you on Instagram or just support you in some, to some capacity, because I'm just really grateful for our connection, Magybet, like what you are doing, like is so amazing. So thank you so much, Magybet, for being on the podcast. If you have any final thoughts, any last words, this would be the time to share.
Thank you so much for having me. We have a saying at Immigo, it's con ganas y sin miedo, so it's with will and without fear. And so that's what I encourage on like daily to communities, just showing up, doing your best, and living life without fear.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the MíraLA Podcast. If you are a woman and would like to be on the show, go to MíraLaPodcast.com. Follow us on socials at MíraLA Podcast. Use hashtag MíraLa Mondays. And if you want to support the show, subscribe, share with your amigos, and tune in for new episodes every Monday. Muchas gracias.